Okay, so will the first person on the list come up to speak for 3 minutes, please? Can you give us your name and address, please?
Tom LaFleur, 2451 Woodbourne Place.
Okay.
So I was shocked when I saw the figures for the 26 proposed budget. The 15% increase per door is not reasonable, and it's certainly not sustainable. Last year we had an increase reportedly to pad our reserve accounts. The 2026 proposed budget calls for an 8% increase in operations, but also a 57% increase in our reserve funding. We've owned our home in Sandoval for 14 years. And the question has to be asked, where's the reserve funding going? Are we truly using reserve funds for unexpected events like Ian or Ian-like events? Or are they being spent on items that should be budgeted for? I'm all in favor of having a nice, healthy reserve fund, but it can't be a slush fund. We have to keep in mind that whatever budget numbers we pass for 2026, they become the baseline for 2027. So if the 2026 numbers are unreasonable, they're inflated, that's what we start off with 2027. So we have to get 2026 correct. There's an old saying used by economists for years, and it's a principle used by many companies, public and government agencies. It's elementary, but it's very effective. It says, watch your pennies and the dollars take care of themselves. In other words, be efficient in your operations and spending, and funding levels become manageable. Now, efficiency is the key. This is an area where we need to hold our management company accountable. Is every penny being spent of our money achieving maximum community benefit? Now, I'm sure we could all provide suggestions where we can improve operational efficiency here. In fact, the board members should have been forwarded an email that I sent to Chuck regarding this very topic pertaining to our pool attendance. And I would be happy to discuss that issue with any board member, call me after the meeting, whatever. But it's an issue that needs to be raised, and the board of directors should be taking this item up because this is an efficiency item. I'm asking the board member not to approve the 2026 budget as proposed.
3 minutes are up.
I have one more sentence.
Okay.
I think the pencil needs to be sharpened on line items with outrageous increases ranging from 50%, over 50%, to 550% on some line items. The question has to be asked, are we being efficient and maximizing every penny of the residents' money? Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Andrew Emmerich, 2545 Blackburn Circle, former member of this body that I stand before. I too express Mr. LaFleur's concern that we are raising the per door cost to 15% a year. Should I still be sitting on this body, I would be actively voting against it and finding a better way for which to sharpen our pencils. Folks, I know we look at it, sat in your position, and I understand you look at it as a need to protect the community from a perspective of the reserve fund and the reserve studies that are done on a regular basis. Every year we have asked, at least in my service on the board, we ask every year that we increase the individual homeowner's contribution and not rely so heavily on the capital receipts that we receive from the sale of each home in this community. Again, I express as a former board member my concern that you are asking this community to pay an additional 15% a year as we continue to face higher water bill prices, higher energy prices, higher other utilities such as TV and internet streaming services. Again, every penny that is taken out of our pockets as consumers is one less penny that we have to spend on our families and our day-to-day cost of living. So again, I would ask the wiser voices on this board to consider the middle ground and not look at a 15% increase. Ask the management company to sharpen the pencil, find ways to get these desired items done at a cheaper price.
All right. Thank you. Do we have another speaker?
Yeah, but I'll pass.
Pardon me?
I will pass.
Okay, so all done with speakers before the meeting? Okay, let's stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. All right. Let me do the roll call. Bill Simonelli here. John Elkins. Here. Dave Ott. Here. Rob Purcell.
Here.
Dave O'Donnell. Here. Lisa DePatty. Here. And we have Stan Toro attending remotely, correct?
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you, Stan. Okay. All members are here and we have a quorum. Okay. The first order of business is the resolution related to approval of the 2026 operating budget. And I will ask Dave to read the resolution and then I'll ask for a second.
A resolution by the Sandoval Community Association, Inc., referred to as the association. Whereas the Board of Directors has presented the attached proposed operating budget for the fiscal year 2026 to the members of the association. And whereas the proposed 2026 operating budget includes a community assessment of $2,559.00 per year to be paid quarterly in accordance with all association rules. Whereas the proposed 2026 operating budget includes a neighborhood landscape assessment of $1,590.19 per year to be paid quarterly in accordance with all association rules. Be it resolved that the proposed operating budget for the fiscal year 2026 is hereby approved as presented by the Association Board of Directors.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Lisa seconds. So Dave, why don't you speak first and then we'll give every board member a chance to talk about the resolution and the operating budget.
Well, I don't like raising the association fees any more than anyone else. But this coming year, we have additional items that we have to pay for. And we had some large increases in the cost of doing business. And unfortunately, that's what led to the increase of $179 a year. And we have gone through this, not only myself, but the finance committee has gone through this multiple times, looking to see areas where we can cut. We were able to cut a few things, but that's what we think we need to run the operation next year.
All right. Can any board member wish to speak, raise their hand? We'll take turns. John? John, please.
Did I give you too much? There's three pages.
All right. So, John, is this related to the operating budget or the reserve budget?
Both.
Okay, so let's keep your comments on the operating budget right now.
Are you saying we're not voting on reverse budget?
We are as a separate resolution. There are two separate resolutions that Dave submitted to the board to review.
Okay.
So this is just the operating assessment and the neighborhood assessment that we're reviewing right now.
Okay. All right. I move to amend the operating budget with a reduction of $50,000. The line items for that reduction be determined by the treasurer and GM. And this reduction reduces the number of property contribution operating side to operating expense by $30,000.
Do I have a second? Yeah. Okay. All right, so let's discuss this amendment. John, what's your comments on the amendment?
I think there are contingencies all throughout the budget. We all think it's too fat. I'd like to trim it more, but I think this is a reasonable trimming. In fact, when we had the budget meeting, the town hall budget meeting, I went to the room, and in that room there was a member of the finance committee who I highly respect. And I passed him a note. I said, tell me if we could cut $72,000 off of this budget. And while the presentation went on, he worked some numbers and did some more numbers. I can do half. If he can do half, that's 37,000. He can do 50. I have no more logic than that. I think there's enough fat in here that we can trim that 50 grand. And I think responsible committee members and GM and treasurer can do that. That's my logic.
So John, let me ask you a question. So are you saying that you want to see 50,000 reduced from the original proposal or from the resolution with the revised budget that Dave submitted to the board earlier this week?
How much was it reduced by the alteration?
$21.
$21 per house.
Yes, that's what the reduction was. So instead of it being $200 increase, it was gonna be $179.
Yes, I would like to see that.
I'm sorry, I don't understand your. So is this on top of that, or is this?
In addition to that,
So you want to see the budget further reduced another 50,000?
I want therefore $55 per household cut from the budget.
And what are you proposing we cut?
I'm not suggesting what you cut. I understand there's room in there to cut, and I would give that responsibility to you and the GM to find it. There are contingency numbers, there are police numbers, there are litigation numbers. I just think I'd like to see us be a little sharper with our pencil, and this seems reasonable to me.
Okay.
Does the board think we can trim anything out of administrative? I'd like to identify areas that we don't even have to go back and look at. So the administrative, is there anything in there that you think we need to look at? Because that's pretty much fixed costs that we have.
I don't intend to go through the budget tonight in detail. I think
I'm trying to keep it at a high level. I'm
I
asking
understand.
at a certain level, can you identify an area that we need to look at? Because we've gone over this multiple times and we reduced things multiple times. And right now, I don't know where else I can reduce it. So I'm asking you as a board member to help me identify what I need to look at.
Well, the discretionary reserve and the budget emergency are brand new at $100,000. They can go right away.
Stan, we're talking about the operating budget, not the reserve budget at this point.
Right.
So we're addressing what's in. So Dave's
John wants to cut it by 50,000, and Dave is asking where he can. I mean, there's plenty of places where we can get it. That's not something to discuss today. If the resolution passes, then we should just look for things to do instead of arguing on the board.
I think Dave and the finance committee are looking for some guidance for prioritization of areas to look at from the board members that think that the budget is oversized.
I'd be glad to work
No,
with
that's
them.
understood, but right now it's not the time for that. The motion is to lower it by 50. And, we gotta go back and see what we can do. Now it's not the time for that. We all need to sit down, look at it again, and come to an understanding.
So with that approach, then that means we would have to have another meeting to approve the final budget.
Okay? If you want a motion to table it, I'll take
No,
table it.
no, we can't afford to do that. You, how many line items in this budget? 70,
No,
60,
no,
50?
no, there's maybe 10. I'm just saying, can we agree on certain areas that we don't need to look at? And I'm saying the first thing that comes up is the administrative side of that.
I don't want you to look at payroll. All right. I think we should look at contingencies, legal and police for two things in particular. Okay. What's the contingency line item in the budget?
Contingency line items for unexpected expenses.
How much is it?
I lowered it from 100,000 to 75,000.
Okay. So let's take let's take 25 out of there. Look, you're far more qualified to find this money than I am. But I'm saying I think the board is charging you and our GM to find $50,000 more to cut. And I don't want to do it tonight.
And what I'm saying is that we had reviewed this multiple times. We've made multiple adjustments to it. And this is what the finance committee and myself came down to, as this is the number we think we have to budget.
I'd say let's do it again. I mean, you guys take another cut for 50,000. I'd like to ask the question, please.
Well, and now everybody's had a chance to speak, John. So please, and it's my role to ask for the question. Okay? All right. Rod, do you have any comments on this amendment?
Not on this amendment.
David?
Yeah, I do have a comment on this. Number one, I want to thank the finance committee and Dave for the hard work they put in. Nobody's questioning that you guys put a lot of effort into this. But my comment goes to the fact that we can't ask the residents to strike up a huge lift, whether it's on the reserve side or the other side, and not do a significant amount of cost control. I am in favor of a working session, and I'd be happy to join it. Tonight's not the time, but I think there is room to get to this 50,000, and I think we owe it to the residents to do that.
Go. Oh, excuse me, Stan.
I'm sorry. It wasn't for you guys. I'm sorry. Yeah, my fault. I'm saying what.
Okay. All right. David, do you have anything else?
Nope.
Okay. Lisa, do you have any comments you'd like to make?
Well, I would actually like to maybe propose that we kind of do a middle of the road, because I know that Dave and the finance committee have already looked, as he indicated multiple times, at cuts. And we are trying to be good stewards of our resident dollars, but we unfortunately are impacted by those different increases in utilities and vendors as well. But in doing so, maybe we look at just taking an additional 25 off of the 100,000 contingency to keep it at 50, which would be the 50,000 from the original proposal, as opposed to trying to look at each individual line item.
My thought was before the adjustments were made, my thought was to take 72,000 off, which would result to a $50 per household reduction. So it's $50 is per household is around $72,000 in total income. I dropped it down to 50 because of these adjustments, because I still would like to see $50 less from our original budget being charged to when the budget was presented at the town meeting. I can't get into reserve. I want to talk to reserve.
That's a separate resolution. Okay.
Right.
So,
Can I say something real quick?
yes, Stan, because then I still want something to say too. So please go ahead.
Yeah, no, I appreciate what Dave and the finance committee are doing, but I feel like they're taking this a little bit too personal, whereas we have 1,400 homes that are taking it extremely personal in their budget. We have older people, we have people with families and kids. This is a very, very high rate. And we actually need to sit down at the board and look over all of it. Just because the finance committee came up with this fantastic idea doesn't mean that it's correct. And we obviously don't agree with it. And we need to sit down and go over it as a board, not just a finance committee presents it to us and now we have to fight about it. There's gotta be a better way to do this in order to help our residents so that we don't get slammed with all this money. I mean, we're being priced out of our own houses. We have to do the right thing for the residents. And this isn't it right now. We need to sit down as a board and go over this specifically. And we need to table this so that we can do the right thing for everybody.
Okay. So. All right. Okay, Stan, do you have anything else to say before I say my comments?
No, that's it. for
Okay.
now.
So Dave, walk me through this, okay? So with the adjustments that you presented to the board this week, how much did you reduce the expense line by?
Total amount of expense lines?
Yes, that you did the reduction.
I'd have to go back and look through everything. I mean, what I did was, because we had to add, we had to add in the $40,000 that we approved at the last board meeting. I went in.
For the 40,000 for the
PDP.
amended PDP.
Yes.
Right.
So I took that money from the CCPD and contingency to offset that amount.
Okay.
And then there was something else I adjusted that I just
Litigation.
oh, the litigation.
Took the litigation line down.
Reduced the litigation too.
Right. Do you have this, the total? I don't have the email in front of me. Do you have
No.
the total amount that he's reduced there?
How much I reduced from
How much, what was the net expense reduction? That's what I'm trying to get to.
I think 30,000 because you took
Okay.
the 25 and then increased income,
Okay.
but these two offset each other.
So,
yeah.
so Dave, your proposal took a net 30 out of the original proposal.
Yes.
Okay. So, John, following your logic here, are you looking for an additional 20 or an additional 50? Because he's already reduced it 30 from the original proposal. 30,000 expenses. And you were asking for
30,000 expenses, I understand. Okay, I want to reduce it. I say 50,000, but I want to reduce at least 42 in order to affect a $50 reduction in cost per door.
Right. So the question I'm trying to get to, John, just to make sure that we're all baseline correctly here.
Yeah.
Is that if the revised proposal that we are looking at already went down 30,000 from the original proposal, do we need to get another 12 or another 22?
No, 42.
42.
I'm sorry, 30,000 plus 40 plus 42 is 72,000, which results in $50 per door.
Right, but you asked for 50,000 in the amendment, so that's why I'm confused.
Okay, that's because I thought it would take 50 to bring it down. You've already brought it down some. That 50 would bring it down, so that the total reduction would be
So what?
$50 per door.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead. Well, let me just ask one more question, Dave. Okay.
Yeah.
John, I'm not trying to confuse. I'm just trying to get a good baseline here.
I
What
see.
we're trying to do. Okay. So, what target assessment do you think is appropriate?
Well, can't say that without talking about reserve.
We're not. We're talking about operating assessment right now.
Okay. And operating assessments, I wanted that to be $50 per door less, which is $72,000 in expense.
Right. So we originally stated that it was gonna be a $200 increase. Are you looking to make it a $150 increase?
Yes.
All right.
Isn't that what you got in the proposal?
No, the proposal was higher than that.
What's-
But if
Just refresh your memory. What
That's
the
another
proposal-
42,000, what it is.
the proposal is $179.
79. So to
What
get
I'm trying to target is, if 150 is what the target is for the operating budget. Then I don't have to concern myself with $50,000. I just have to get us down to $150 in operating increase, correct?
They kind of connect, don't they?
I'm just saying, in here, you're stating 50,000 and 35. What I'm trying to say is, to make it correct, I will get it down to $150 increase, regardless of whether it's 50,000 or 55,000, and whether it's a $35 increase or more. I'm just trying to say, what is my target that I'm getting to?
May I amend my amendment to meet his words? I'll agree with
I'm
that.
trying to think procedurally how to do that.
I'll agree.
Can you? I'm going to suggest that we table the vote on the operating budget so that the treasurer and the finance committee can work with the GM to try to achieve a $150 increase in the operating assessment.
As opposed to,
I second it.
Well, hold a second. Let me just
why is that required table? Why is that required table?
hold it. Stan, hold on a second. I want to make sure because John's bringing up some good points. I want to make sure that he's satisfied with what we're doing here. Okay.
Yeah. Why is that required table?
Because I think it's important for Dave and the general manager and the finance committee to go back, look at where they can try to meet that number, and then put it in front of the board for a final vote.
Okay.
Because it may require, I don't know what the end result's going to be, it may require a reprioritization of some activities that it's going to give, that I think the board needs to have an opportunity to vote on once they've had a chance to see it.
One example is $80,000 for police.
That's already been
It's
reduced
already been reduced.
To what?
60.
65.
60 pounds. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So I'm not, so John, we're not trying to not accomplish what you're looking for.
Okay.
It's just that I think these guys need to spend some time looking at it and give the board a chance to say, okay, to achieve that, this is what it's going to
Will
take.
we require another board meeting and
Yes, we're going to
14-day
need
notice?
by statutory law, we're going to have another board meeting to vote on it.
Why can't we vote on the,
Because I can't guarantee that he can come up with the cuts that you're going to agree to. I want to make sure that the board sees what's being cut so that everybody's in agreement on how we get to that number. Because it's important that we're all on the same page relative to what gets reduced. So that next year, if we have issues, we can go back and we don't second guess ourselves because we didn't deal with it.
okay,
Okay?
okay.
All right. So I'm going to propose that we table this and we will reschedule a public board meeting to vote on the final budget proposal.
Well, first you have to table the amendment.
Okay, first I propose that we table the amendment. Do I have a second to that?
Second.
Okay.
Second it.
All in favor of tabling the amendment, please say aye.
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 Okay. I'm going to propose that we table this and we'll have our board meeting no sooner than a week from Friday.
Okay.
Okay. I'm probably going to see if the room's available. I'm going to shoot for next Friday because I'm out of town Sunday through Thursday. So Friday's the soonest I can run a meeting.
Okay.
Can I just do this at the next board meeting?
No, it's got to be done in a public meeting like this. The 20th is too late to make the mailings.
I'm
Okay.
gonna be out of town.
You're going to be out of town.
No,
Oh.
we're out of-
You're out of town on the 20th?
That was 13.
Just
When are you back in town?
the
We just had a good friend pass away.
Oh, okay.
It's in Illinois, we haven't even booked our flights yet, but we just got word service is on the 13th.
All right. Let me bring up a calendar real quick, guys. Chuck, if we pass this on the 20th, do we still have time to make the mailing?
I'm sorry.
Chuck, if we wait till the 20th of November, do we still have time to make the mailing with for the budget and all the paperwork that needs to be done for the budget?
It's gonna be close, because they want it in by December 1 to the mail out.
Right, and that's the week before Thanksgiving, so we really are running out of time then. Okay. All right, so you're in town on the 20th. Is it, can I count on that or not sure yet?
I'm not sure yet.
Okay. All right, let me look at the calendar. You know, I'm not trying to put people on the spot because I know this is a busy month.
I have another thought. Bill,
Can I just hold that a second, Jen? Let me just look at this calendar for a minute. Okay. All right, John, what do you want to say?
what if we pass this budget and amend it in the next few weeks? Same
It's,
thing?
it's the same thing because I can't submit any paperwork to a precedent to start we can't certify the budget's approved and we can't start the paperwork to get the bills done.
And the budget has to be done by line item, right?
Yeah, right. It's a very detailed data entry process to make sure it gets in there right the first time. Plus it requires a certification that the board has voted on it.
Yep, okay.
All right, so all right. Does anybody have an issue with the 17th?
I'll make whatever day you want.
Yeah, I'm not in town.
You're not in town the 17th.
No, I leave on the 19th. And then we come back. Follow up Wednesday.
All right, so what days are you here, David?
Uh, all next week.
I thought you said next Friday.
Yeah, well, you said next Friday isn't good for you.
The problem we just get news about
Yeah,
arrangements.
Yeah.
Until we figure that out, I'm not gonna permit saying I'll be here on this day, especially with the airlines canceling
yeah,
flights.
right. So you're not going to be here for the board meeting on the 20th anyway,
No, I'd be here for the border.
for the board meeting on November 20th.
Yes.
Okay. It looks like the best shot is that we'll vote on this again on the 20th.
Okay.
Okay, so I propose that we will table this for revote at the November 20th regular board meeting.
Second,
Any comments on that? All right. All in favor, say aye.
aye.
Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. So at this point, do you want to put up the resolution for the reserve budget, or do you want to postpone that to the 20th also?
I think we need to put it up to get a feel for where the board's coming from
Okay.
because, you know.
Fair enough.
What it is.
Okay. So Dave, can you read the resolution for the reserve budget?
Yes. Resolution by the Sandoval Community Association, Inc., referred to as the association. Whereas the board of directors has presented the following proposed reserve spend budget for the fiscal 2026 to the members of the association, which is governed by all applicable association rules with respect to the approval of and the disbursement of associated funds. And the reserve amount, I'll read each section. The reserve study-based expenditures is $738,271. Budgeted discretionary reserve spend is $50,000. Budgeted emergency spend is $50,000. Install concrete pads at Happy Forest Park, Dog Park is 8,000. Purchase pressure washer equipment for 10,000. Purchase ventilation AED box for tennis pickleball court, 3,000. And tennis court canopy and a vertical display lobby for 6,000. For a total of 865,271. Whereas the proposed 2026 reserve budget includes a reserve assessment of $500.00 per year to be paid quarterly in accordance with all association rules. Be it resolved that the proposed reserve spend budget for fiscal 2026 is hereby approved and presented by the Association Board of Directors.
Do I have a second? I will second it. Okay, Dave, why don't you give some opening comments on it?
All right, the increase in the assessment, proposed assessment, is to prevent us from going into the red in future years. If we continue underfunding the reserve funds, we are going to be out of money in 2035, I believe it is, and we will have to do a special assessment to the residents. And the other piece to this is as we start resurfacing the roads, we are going to be lowering our reserve assessment by a lot. And if we have a hurricane similar to what we had a few years ago, we're going to have a special assessment immediately in order to clean up from Ian. So what we are trying to do is get far enough into the future where we don't run into any situations where we have to impose a special assessment on the residents.
All right. Okay, so I'm going to start off with comments on this one. So over the next 13 years, based on the reserve study, which looks at the work that we have to do to replace or repair the current infrastructure, we are projected to spend $18 million to resurface the roads, refurbish the pool, replace the playground equipment, and do the other work when they're scheduled for replacement. So that's just based on how much we're going to have to spend over the next 12 to 13 years. 9 million and change of that right now is related to resurfacing the roads. Now, one of the things that the association has built into the operating budget, or was it a reserve budget?
Reserve.
Into the reserve budget is we're going to hire a firm to do a course study on the roads to see if we can shift out by a number of years when the roads can be resurfaced. But at some point, since these are privately owned roads, we are going to have to resurface every street in this community, and it's going to cost us $9 to $10 million when it's all said and done. So what the intention of the reserve budget is unfortunately it's trying to collect money in advance so that we never go negative on the reserve, which we're not allowed to do by bylaws. So once we go negative on bylaws, we then immediately have to impose an assessment on the community so that we go put the reserves back into surplus. My experience when I was treasurer was that we spent almost $2 million recovering this community from Ian. And hopefully we'll never see a storm of that magnitude again. But we had the luxury of enough of a surplus and reserve that we could focus on the repair work and get that going instead of having to do an immediate assessment on the community to get the funds to do the repair work. So I think what the finance committee has been trying to do is to balance a short-term view versus a long-term view. And unfortunately, the economy has not been helpful in terms of house sales. So we can expect less revenue coming in from initial house sales. And that means that unfortunately the residents have to shoulder a larger burden of keeping the reserves funded to an adequate level. So that's the theory behind the proposal this year. So John, do you have a comment?
I do.
Okay.
I've worked
with Sandoval finances in some capacity for over 6 years. 2+ on the finance committee and 4 as a board member. For years, Sandoval reserves have been made from the sale of Sandoval homes. When we moved here in 2015, the reserve contribution per sale was $2,000. Then as reserve needs grew, the amount per sale went to $3,000 and then $4,000. Now that was sufficient as reserve needs were met with about 100 home sales per year. Our board, our treasurer, and our finance committee saw the method of funding reserves with only home sales would lead to shortfalls. This necessitated an assessment per unit starting 3 years ago. The target for reserve balance has been $4 million for a while now. In fact, it's currently at 4.5 million. I understand the treasurer and finance committee's desire to assess more than next year's reserve needs, but I don't agree. As a homeowner, I'm far better off spending money for reserve funds with future dollars than today's dollars. Our reserve balance is accruing interest at 3%, maybe a little more than that. My portfolio is gaining a lot better than 3%. Therefore, I'd rather pay you later than now. I recommend we assess sufficient funds to cover next year's reserve expense and not a lot more. Let me tell you why. Okay, if you look at what's going to happen, I'm going to move that we alter the reserve contribution to $400 per door rather than $500. Now, if you take that 400 and multiply it on 1425, that gives $570,000. We're projecting 47 home sales next year. Hopefully, it'll be more, but that would yield $188,000. If we take 3% of our $4.5 million investment, which we're getting interest on, that's $135,000 back into the reserve account. A total of $893,000 from those sources against an $865,000 need, with $100,000 of it being contingency. On top of that, this is a big number. There's $247,000 of reserves we're collecting this year that we're not going to spend. So that's going into the pocket. That's going in the pocket. So I propose an amendment that we change the annual reserve contribution per property to $400, not $500. That's my.
Do I have a second to that
move that we
amendment?
make that amendment.
Second.
Okay. Dave, do you have a comment?
Yes, first of all, the $247,250 that you stated is unspent reserves, that's not true. This year alone, we're going to be over $100,000 under income for reserves due to the slow home sales. And with the damage to the flex room and the upgrade to the pool equipment, we're going to spend $100,000 more than what we planned. So that 247 is not accurate.
I think that you're inaccurate also, Dave, because I went over this with Chuck. We spent little over $300,000 so far this year. There's another $140,000 we expect to spend for a total of a little over $500,000 that we're expected to spend this year. That's earmarked, and that's far less than what we will collect this year. Now I know it's less than what you budgeted to achieve, but I think it's misleading to say that we're under budget and reserve funding because we've got the money. The numbers don't lie. I'll pass them out to anybody who wants them. That we have sufficient money to cover that, and we've also got that extra from this year. But we don't even need that extra. We've got enough money coming in already to cover that 865 and extra.
If you only want to look at 1 year at a time, yes, we do. But if you need to look long term to make sure that we are properly funded for future expenses.
Like I say, I'd rather give you my money 2 years from now than today.
So before I make a comment, Dave, do you have a comment?
I do have a comment. My biggest concern is I do agree that we need to gradually step up our reserve funding
Mm-hmm.
because of the study. I think that this number and these percentage rates you know, obviously because it's 4 years and we just started it, that's very aggressive, right? So 156, 350, 500, if we can get there and gradually, you know, my question, and I ask this is, at what level do we tier off on this, right? Like, at what point does this graph just hyperbolic and keep going up and up because we're concerned about the deadline when we're, you know, we're in the red on the reserves, 10 years out, 15 years out, whatever it is. I think what this is not taking into account is the flux in the market. We're going to have ups and downs. Home sales are going to be better. Home sales are going to be worse. We're going to see more income, more revenue coming in from home sales in better years. Second point on this is that I agree with John that if we're only making 3% interest here, all of these folks out here, these good hardworking folks, could make 5% pretty straight up. So, I mean, the math doesn't make it that we should be pouring. I mean, we got to add to it, but this rate just seems too high.
Right.
Do we have
So
a
let me
second for my
just, so
amendment?
can I just,
Dave's-
so Stan, hold on a second. You're gonna get a chance to talk in a minute. So Dave, I just want to clarify one thing. Our bylaws state that our reserve funds can only be held in a government-backed account.
Understood.
So which limits us the options of what we can currently do with these reserve funds to try to grow it.
Right.
So we're most obviously 90+% of our reserve funds are currently in our 2-year treasury bond account. And that's been doing about what, 3.6, 3.7%?
Right now it's down to 3.1.
3.1 based on the current market.
I use 3
Right,
for my calculation.
right. And then, yeah, and then if you look at, and the other point, Dave, and then I'll let Stan talk, is if you look at the package that the finance committee put together for the budget, they laid out the spend for the 13 years. And they also built into that an inflation adjustment of what the costs are going to be over that 13-year span, as well as an assumption about how house sales are going to increase over that time period. And that's what's led the finance committee to the conclusion that in 35,
35.
the reserve funds would go into the red. So the proposal is to try to not have that happen so that we don't go hand in hand to the community for a reserve assessment in 5 years or so. So I just want to answer that. Stan, do you want to say something and then we'll let Rob talk?
Yeah, if I may, I just want to kind of come to these points. I agree with John. That we're not under. We're way over. We have the money and there's no sections of our end when we're not. Our therapies are kind of comes through. Whatever we're looking at 10 years from now, but we don't have to make up the difference in 1 year. We can definitely, just do a little bit every year, making us be comfortable, make all the homeowners warm and fuzzy, and keep this affordable for everybody. I also saw that last time I met with Dave, and correct me if I'm wrong, it was $100,000 lease for.
Chuck, I mean, Stan, you're cutting out. Could you take a step back and say that again, please?
I said in that first reports, reverse learning or reverse budget. Well, for
So,
be a lot healthier. I don't understand.
so Dave, do you want to answer that?
The $100,000 for Juniper, that is for landscape restoration as a result of Ian. And that's been,
How long are we gonna pay for it in? And to my understanding, the $100,000, there's no contract. There's no beginning or end date. Why are we still paying for that? Why are we putting it into the budget? Whereas Juniper's already getting paid, how much, $500,000 a year? Doesn't make any sense to me. We have enough money in the return. We have enough money to provide for the next 10 years. If we're gonna bump it up, let's do a little baby bump every year instead of this massive uncalled for research study. The other thing is that a lot of things in the research are not really research things. We can't buy a camera for the free on research money. Just because it's in the research, in the research study that we got, I mean, that we need to rearrange that research study. Because a lot of things we pay for with research money are not research money qualified. Get most of that place, John. If we keep putting all this money on third, yeah, let's find everybody out of $10 vote. And that's what I can say. It's really very, it's fascinating. So if we're under in reserve, and maybe we can stop by trust for the new people and trading all the extra money because we can't afford it. We need to run with it. I'm done.
Okay, Lisa, do you have anything you'd like to say to this discussion?
So I just wanted to add that, I don't like seeing increased expenses either, but I am concerned. So a large part of the reserve study had identified the major erosion issues that we've been having with the lakes. And that was a can that was kicked down the road for several years, and that's why it's an expense now. And additionally, we've been seeing more infrastructure issues with our water main breaks and things that make an expense towards the community. So I mean, I don't know if we can sharpen the pencil anymore, but I do think we need to continue increasing it somewhat to be able to account for some of these issues so we don't have a large assessment in a particular year.
Okay. So, Stan, to address some of the comments that you made, the landscape restoration plan for post Hurricane Ian was a 4-year plan that has been discussed with the board for the last 3 years. And the original plan was to spend $100,000 for 4 consecutive years to replace some portion of the 600 plus trees and bushes that we lost from Hurricane Ian. So what, and noting that, and we have no existing contract with Juniper, we get a quote from Juniper for planting of the bushes like we did the last 2 years to go into the areas where there were gaps from downed bushes. And those expenditures were all approved by the board at a public meeting. So there's no contract that obligates us to that amount. That is, the finance committee was following the direction of the board for the past couple years to try to restore the community to a certain level of landscape that got destroyed during Ian. Now, I think in the revision, what Dave and the finance committee did is they then sharpened the pencils on looking at how to uh, cut back on that amount of work over the next couple of years and focus on 1 or 2 key areas that still need some landscape improvements.
the other thing is the reason we are using Juniper as opposed to other landscapers is because since Juniper maintains the common areas, they guarantee the plants for a longer period of time than anybody else will.
And that's all great, and I understand the reasoning for it, but if Super is doing the common area, seeing your money, has your money, then we really look into it again, just because we worked with it 4 years ago, and we voted on it, they're doing that with people for even longer, we need to reassess and see where $100,000 worth of chance is going out to get it done for so long, we haven't had another change. Why 100,000, why not 20? I don't understand why we are keeping paying Juniper to replace plants at the end of the anywhere to their own conference. There's no use in conference for $100,000. Not the right way to do business, and if somebody has $100,000 bid. You need to revisit it, so we need to lower the amount or get rid of it altogether. We need to roll this into their contract where they replace the plant as they see fit. I don't see it. I understand what you just said, but I think it's time for that to be done.
Okay, so Dave, let me ask you a question. What was the landscape committee's target for the Ian plan for next year?
For next year,
Yes.
um, we haven't, I have some quotes, but I don't have all of them. But it was, I know it was 50,000 or $53,000 to put the shrubs back in along Surfside on the outside of the fence, fill in those areas. And then there was an additional charge for repairing the irrigation back there because the irrigation doesn't work. And I do not remember that off the top of my head.
So
Yeah, but
Stan,
listen, with all due respect, we can't be guessing on things like this right now. These spelling numbers, and we just can't guess. So, I mean, we gotta get this, like this.
Dave has a quote from Juniper to restore the landscape along Surfside fence. That's the 53,000 he just cited.
And then there's an additional amount. I have the quote at home. I just don't have it memorized for restoring the irrigation. I don't know what that is, and I'm not gonna guess.
Yeah, that's fine, but that's stuff that Juniper could be doing anyway. Why are we still hammering with $100,000 extra? And then another $100,000 fifty six money. $200,000. Where is it? Now,
Okay. All right. All right. Has anybody else got any other comments on John's amendment? Rob?
I, when, I saw there was, the increase was so much for reserves. I kind of balked at that. I thought it should be stepped down. That's why I agreed with John on the $400 per household, and can be stepped up gradually over the next 5 years or whatever it is. And if we needed a special assessment, we do it. So I'm in agreement with John that to set the assessment for the reserve study to be 400, not 500.
Okay. So any other board member have any other comments on this before I call the question on the amendment? Okay. So I'm going to call the question on the amendment for the reserve budget. All those in favor of accepting the amendment of setting the reserve assessment to $400, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Stan? Stan,
yes, hi, we're voting on,
we're voting on John's amendment.
to tax it at 400 out the house, with going over the numbers again.
Yes.
So what's the vote right now?
We need you to vote.
We need you to vote, Stan.
Just,
Yes or no?
I guess I'm gonna have to move yes, because I'm outnumbered, so, I think I'll try to push you later on, so yeah.
Okay. The amendment passes. Okay. Do we have any other discussion that any board member would like to make on the main resolution? Are there any other amendments to be considered against this resolution? So Dave, could you restate the the resolution with the amendment?
Uh, Resolution by the Sandoval Community Association, Inc., referred to as the association. Whereas the Board of Directors has presented the following proposed reserve spend budget for the fiscal 2026 year to the members of the association with its governing documents by all applicable association rules with respect to the approval of and the disbursement of association funds. I'm not going to go into each one of those line items. Whereas the proposed 2026 reserve spend budget includes a reserve assessment of $400.00 per year to be paid quarterly in accordance with all association rules. Be it resolved that the proposed reserve spend budget for the fiscal year 2026 is hereby approved as presented by the Association Board of Directors.
Okay. All those in favor of the resolution as amendment, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
All right. Stan? All right.
I'm opposed.
So we have 6-1 on that one, Chuck. Okay. All right. So this meeting is concluded. We will have our next board meeting on Thursday, November 20th. And at that time, under old business, we will reconsider the operating budget assessment and resolution. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do I have a second? All those in favor to adjourn, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Does anybody wish to speak? Yeah.
As been noted by the board on several occasions, as well as when I served, it was referenced today that the bylaws prevent us from looking at ways to better invest our reserve monies. As a history major and now teaching entrepreneurship and business to our young folks at the high school level, we are historically not seeing the doubling of our money every 7 years due to the fact that we are stuck in cash and cash equivalents. I volunteer to help this board and the community as a whole, should we go that direction at the direction of the board, to look at a way to revise our amendments to allow us to put our monies in better returning while still being fiscally conservative and responsible with the money going forward. So again, I understand the complexity of which allows only right now about 3% return on our money. I think this community needs to look at better options. I understand why such language is in place in documents like ours, is to prevent money being put into things like the issue that we had with the tech market back in early 2000, and lots of communities found themselves in a bad spot. I think we can do this responsibly, and I hereby volunteer if the board chooses to go that direction to help lead a revision drive to get our documents amended to allow better investment vehicles.
Does anybody else wish to talk? I just want to note that if we do go through the amendment process, the first year that these new bylaws would be in effect would be 2027. So we would see no immediate benefit from changing those bylaws until the end of 27, when we've had a full year of presumably new investment plans. Does anybody else wish to say anything? All right, everybody have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.